this is one of our first open webinars to share information about how the women and gender agenda are looking forward to COP16 of the CBD, the Convention on Biodiversity. This is a webinar organized by the CBD Women's Caucus, and it is an extreme pleasure to have you all here. First, to share a bit about the agenda or the points that we are hoping to cover today. For those that do not know us, we will share about what is the Women Caucus, our objectives. But sorry, before going into the agenda, we have interpretation for today's session. For those that prefer to follow the conversation in Spanish, English, or French, please feel free to use this service by clicking on the interpretation button under the Zoom controls. So coming back to the agenda, this is a 1 hour and a half conversation where we are going to share different updates as we have been able to gather them during these days and weeks lining up towards COP. So we are after sharing what is the Women's Caucus, we will also share the information we have about what to expect from COP16, what is the possibilities of this event, why is this type of events important for women, why should women get engaged? Also, we will share about different opportunities for women's organizations, representatives, collectives to participate in the different streams of the COP16 and around it. There's going to be a Q&A segment, plus we're going to close the session sharing a bit about further steps and how to get engaged with the Women's Caucus and participate in this wonderful women's agenda lining up towards COP and then during COP. I am Amelia Reguin, and it is a pleasure to be the co-host of this session, all along with my different colleagues of the Women's Caucus. A bit about us is that the CBD Women's Caucus is this platform where women and girls in their diversity from different cultures, backgrounds, occupations, organizations, and so on, come together under the Convention on Biodiversity to participate in their direct decision-making processes at different levels. We are an independent, self-organized, and permanent and sustainable entity. And we guide our work under the framework of collective ownership, shared leadership, and collaborative action. We will have and we will address the different questions and answers in the dedicated section, which is the last 30 minutes of this call. So please feel free to type down your questions, or if you can let us know your comments and so on in the chat, or to wait for that to that segment, please. Thank you so much, Emil, for your interest. But following back into what the caucus is, we are so far we are comprising a membership of 400 plus members that are part of different organizations, women's organizations, community, collectives, non-governmental organizations, or individuals from around 91 countries over the world. How we are structured is that everyone has the right to be a member if you comply within this criteria of working for women's rights and human rights and the biodiversity agenda. Within the membership, we elect our board, and also the board appoints the coordination, which is the day-to-day body that that facilitates the work of the caucus. What do? Is we have 5 streams of work or action. The first one is community building, as of creating this space of women and mostly women, not necessarily girls because of the age, but it is an open space for them too. To come together and share their experience, learn together, share information, and support each other processes while influencing the biodiversity policies in our countries or communities. After community building, we also have this segment or stream on policy and advocacy, where we support the different and we participate directly in the different CBD spaces, naming the intersessionals, the subsidiary body meetings, the expert meetings, and now the COP. We're going to go a bit through that in a bit. Capacity development within or for the caucus members. We also have a stream on awareness and outreach and knowledge production. Whoever is part of the caucus is invited to participate in the different streams and the work that we develop during the months and so on. So this is a bit about us. We are gonna drop in the chat a link where you can read more about us, the subscription links in case you are interested to join us as individuals or as organizations. And well, this event, as mentioned, is organized by this platform with the objective of sharing as much information as possible for women, particularly grassroots women, to engage better in, or as best as possible, in the COP16 of the CBD. But a bit of background. So our participation in that in this COP that is going to happen in October, it is a bit more grounded. So we might be more familiar with the COP15 and the background and the GBF, the Global Biodiversity Framework, which was the main outcome of the COP15 that was hosted in 2022, which was actually a milestone for the CBD, for the Convention on Biodiversity, because it was during COP15 when this framework was adopted that parties all around the world, all parties, all governments, except from the US, they committed themselves to halt and reverse biodiversity loss by the 2030. And in order to do so, they agreed on 23 targets, particular actions that they should implement at the national level. For us as Women Caucus and whoever is working for women's rights or the gender agenda, within this the Global Biodiversity Framework, there is a particular provision that is critical for us, which is the Target 23 that speaks explicitly about ensuring the gender equality and the gender equality in biodiversity policies by implementing the GBF in a gender responsive manner. But apart from the GBF that includes this Target 23, for us is critical to also know that during COP15, there was another instrument adopted and has to be implemented the same as the GBF, which is the Gender Plan of Action, a particular instrument that have clear guidance, not only for governments, but for all the actors that are participating or acting around biodiversity conservation. And this is a bit of what to expect from COP16, is that based on that or having that background of coming after COP15, how this COP is looking like is that Well, we know that the official COP it's going to happen during October 21 to November 21. And the first row, you have the dates for the official negotiations. But the negotiations is not the only space where conversations or influencing can be done. We also have other spaces and other opportunities for women to participate and to also share and their priorities and advance them. We're going to share these slides afterwards, so you can also take a look into this calendar more in depth. This has been developed based on information coming from the Secretariat of the CBD, but this is a preliminary calendar, meaning that it could evolve depending on the decisions of those organizing the COP as an official event, right? We're going to highlight some of these events as we progress with the conversation, and my colleagues share a bit more detail about them. And lastly, on my side, on what to expect from COP, this is just to flag to everyone interested that this is going to be a pretty packed COP, because there are 20 items that are going to be negotiated, and towards of which they have to have a decision at the end of 2 weeks of negotiation. So just let me go back a bit to the calendar, and if you can see look at the first row, you see that we only have 10 days for negotiations, with sessions in the morning, in the afternoon, potentially, and more likely to have evening sessions, and even during the weekend, because there are a lot of 20 items to be discussed and agreed. All of them could be or should be of interest for women's rights agenda. But as Caucus, we are going to share with you a couple of them of that we have identified as the critical or the game changers that could be for advancing the recognition, respect, and fulfillment of our rights. If you want to go through the official agenda, you can go to this website. So far, the only document that is available is the provisional agenda that already outlines which are going to be these policy items are going to be discussed. So now we are moving to why should women get engaged during COP16. And I'm going to give the floor to my colleague, Christina Egenter, that is going to provide us with some reflections about this particular item on the COP16 agenda. Thank you so much, Christina. It seems that the technology is not on our side today. Many things going on. Maybe we can use this time for people to type their questions in the chat. And yeah, maybe we can go to the next slide while Christina sort out her technical problems. And and then in that case, I'm gonna share just a bit about one item that is gonna be discussed and is critical for us as Caucus, is because since during COP16, we know that the GBF was adopted. And one of the main items that will be discussed and agreed on during COP16 is a direct follow-up of the GBF, because in the GBF, governments agreed on what to do to stop biodiversity loss. And now in COP16, they're gonna decide on how are they going to measure that they are actually stopping biodiversity loss, or that they are actually implementing the actions they agreed during COP15. And this is gonna be done through the monitoring framework, which is this document where they are selecting which are going to be the indicators that will be used to monitor or to follow the progress of their actions. This item is for particular attention for women because of three main points. One is we are advocating for the whole monitoring framework as possible to have gender disaggregation, that for the different indicators that the governments are discussing and agreeing on, they collect sex disaggregated data. This is critical because if you try to find information about women's contributions, roles, all the gendered impacts of whichever activity governments or any actor are having are putting in place, we don't know, because these actors and entities are not collecting sex disaggregated information, gender disaggregated information. So this is one of our first request demands during COP16. The other one is that the target 23, which is the target on gender equality, has an agreed headline indicator. We have been advocating for different options during the last 4 years, but the parties have not agreed in using in any of those as headline indicators. And if there is no headline indicator like this main way of measuring how they are implementing target 23, the implementation of it might get lost in the way because there's not going to be a way of measuring if there's progress or not. And the other priority that as Caucus we have been pushing forwards is that the gender plan of action is turned into an indicator, or that the implementation of the gender plan of action is used as an indicator to track the progress towards target 23. It is also critical to see that this monitoring framework is not only to be used at the international level, or that these indicators parties are agreeing could be and should be translated into national indicators during the process of the MBSAPs, but also at the local level with the organizations, with the communities, if they have their own monitoring systems, if they have their own monitoring process. The gender disaggregation should be a principle to help us all to start collecting this information. But we are really aware that this is, or this looks like a bigger ask, a really tough, a really complicated one, because at this point there are not either the capacities or the resources to take ahead this action. But there are plenty of organizations, institutions that could provide the support for all the governments that are truly committed to the collection of this information that will allow us to know if the target 23 is being adopted. Now, if it's possible, let me go try back with to see if my colleague Christina is back. Christina, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Okay, you're here, but we cannot hear you still.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. So,
Sharon, can you hear her?
yes, she can.
Yeah. Okay, please. Okay, then let's go to your slide. Thank you.
Okay. So it's good. You actually started off, Amelia, with one of the main items for negotiation around the finalization of the monitoring framework. And what I will be sharing about briefly on the MBSAPs and GBF implementation is not per se an item of negotiation at COP16, but represents the focus and the bulk of the work that needs to happen in between now and 2030. So we know that the Montreal GBF adopted in December 22, as Amelia also pointed out, provides a strong human rights-based framework for implementation. And with the standalone target 23, and the gender plan of action, the GBF is an historic opportunity for advancing gender equality in the context of biodiversity, conservation, sustainable use, and the fair and equitable benefit sharing of genetic resources, and which are the three objectives of the convention. Now the focus is on gender responsive implementation at national and subnational levels. And the entry point is the revision of the national plans of action, the MBSAPs. A key consideration for guiding gender responsive implementation is in the section C, a preambular section in the GBF, which actually states successful implementation of the framework will depend on ensuring gender equality and empowerment of women and girls, and on reducing inequalities. This is very important, but let's look at the reality and what happens. Civil society organizations earlier this year conducted a survey to measure or to assess to what extent whole of society and inclusion were part of the MBSAP's revision processes taking place in various countries. Preliminary results of the survey were shared at the SBI 4 in May 24, a couple of months ago in Nairobi. And this survey indicated that among the rights holders, so indigenous people, local communities, women, youth, persons with disabilities, and so on, women associations and networks, especially at grassroots level, are the least likely to be invited and participate in consultations, especially at national level. So this is a strong indication that more reach out is needed. We need to connect these voices and make sure that these voices are heard. Gender responsive means more than attendance, participation, or being there, unless the presence is supported by adequate information in the language that is appropriate, culturally appropriate, comes with the ability to speak, the opportunity to speak, and the right to be heard for women and girls in particular. And gender responsive is about addressing systemic inequality. And this could be seen at the level of policy and decision-making, and the presence and the participation and the position and role of women in this space, land and resource rights, and access rights, and access to resources, including financial resources. This is fundamental to enable that implementation that is gender responsive. Because after all, gender equality, beside all the human rights concerns and the rights of women and advancing right and sustainable, inclusive and right development, is also about enhancing and improving, strengthening environmental outcomes. There is an opportunity also to engage, and I think it's important to note that a notification was circulated by the Secretariat of the Convention, and I think recirculated recently about for parties to nominate gender and biodiversity national focal points. This is an important bridge, an important player and actor that we need to connect with, support, in order to make sure that implementation of the framework is gender responsive. That's all. Back to you, Amelia.
Thank you so much, Christina. And we'll now go then to the next highlight of these policy items, which is the new program of work of the Article AJ. And for that, we are going to hear from our colleague, Shruti Ajit, please.
Thank you so much, Amelia. So the new program of work, so Article 8J basically focuses on the traditional knowledge, innovations, and practices of indigenous and local communities. So essentially, countries are to create, subjected to national legislation, they are to create specific guidelines and specific policies to ensure that traditional knowledge, innovations, and practices of indigenous peoples and local communities are respected and taken into account. Now, with that, there's a new program of work which highlights some of these elements. Actually, there are 8 elements. I missed out one. I'm sorry for that. I will go through some of it. Basically, there are 8 elements. These elements are supposed to be implemented with full, equitable, inclusive, effective, and gender responsive participation of indigenous peoples and local communities. So, and when we, so with participation, it has to be gender responsive, keeping in mind that women are one of the, indigenous women and local women are some of the key traditional knowledge keepers, and they are the ones who transfer the knowledge from one generation to another. So as women, they have to be centrally involved in some of the, in all of these processes that involves the 8J program of work. Now these elements are divided into 8 parts. The first one, so I'm not going to go through all of it because there's limited time. I'm going to go through a few of them. One is on conservation restoration, which speaks about the aspects of Target 2 and Target 3 particularly. The Target 2 focuses on 30% of restoration to be reached by 2030, and Target 3 talks about 30% of protected area and OECMs, which is other effective conservation measures, to be reached by 2030. So it's both of them are actually 30 by 30. And basically it focuses on restoration and conservation. And here they are talking about how women need to be included at all levels of implementation, monitoring, and the implementation and monitoring of these guidelines, which will inform the implementation of Target 2 and Target 3 of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. There is the aspect of sustainable use of biodiversity, which speaks about recognition of indigenous peoples and local communities' customary sustainable use of biodiversity to be recognized. And benefit sharing in traditional knowledge, again, it's one of the aspects of the objectives of CBD. So these are still ongoing, and these kind of these conversations are something that requires us to continuously engage and focus on gender responsive aspects, and to ensure that women also have equal benefits from their traditional knowledge and for the sustainable use of biodiversity. Knowledge and culture is something very important because it talks about transmission of knowledge from one generation to another, and women play a very, very huge role in this. So therefore, there are several action points under that which needs to involve women in those action points, which needs to be carried out by sometimes by just countries, sometimes by all of us, which includes the whole of society approach. Then there is strengthening and implementation and monitoring process, which Christina briefly spoke about with the NBSAT. We have the full and effective participation of indigenous peoples and local communities. And here, when we say full and effective, this is just a shortened version of the larger, full, effective, equitable, and gender responsive participation of indigenous people and local communities, which ensures that women are equally considered in this. And then you have the human rights based approach. Here, of course, the human rights based approach is something that needs to be kept in mind, especially when you are looking at the implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So this program of work is going to complement the existing aspects of Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, and it should not be seen separate from it. This work especially looks at the traditional knowledge innovation practices of indigenous peoples and local communities. And within that, we are trying to look at how women, indigenous women and local women contribute, especially with regards to traditional knowledge. The last one I missed is on funding, direct access to funding for indigenous people and local communities for conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of biodiversity. So those are the 8 elements. Now, one of the things that are there as action points in some of these elements is also, which Amelia spoke about earlier, is the implementation of gender plan of action. So a lot of these needs to be informed by the implementation of the gender plan of action. And therefore, the new program of work has these 8 elements. And one of the things that they are also considering when they look at it, their new program of work is looking at the gender plan of action and human rights based approach within all of their activities. So with that, I'm going to stop and pass it on back to you, Amelia.
Thank you so much, Shruti. And now moving with Eda to hear a bit about resource mobilization. Please, Eda.
Thank you very much. Can you change the slide, please? Thank you. Now, I am going to speak about something that everybody in this room, virtual room, understands: money. Money is needed. Money is needed to implement biodiversity action. And money is needed to arrive to the right hands, to the actors of this biodiversity action. And women are not only beneficiaries or a number. Women, we are actors in biodiversity action. So how much money is needed for biodiversity to be, biodiversity loss to be halted and reversed? In the decisions of the COP, a certain number, even if it's not maybe the real number, but a certain number has been agreed. $200 billion a year by 2030, it's needed to close the gap between biodiversity loss and these loss to be halted and reversed. How is this are these $200 billion to be presented? It would be $20 billion per year by 2025, next year, and at least $30 billion per year by 2030. How is it going to be presented or allocated? In an adequate, predictable, and timely manner. The problem with these words is that they are subjective to be understood differently by whomever reads them. But the idea to put them there is that it is not only needed to be, that the COP talks about the amount of money, but how is this money going to be allocated? Adequate, predictable, and a timely manner, okay? Then we follow to from where is this money going to be appearing? Because there's no money, nobody talks about where the money is coming from. One of the main things after COP15 is that the money needed for biodiversity action is not going only to be delivered from developed countries to developing countries, what is known as international finance help. No? This is going to come, this amount of money has to come from all sources. What does this mean? From the public, meaning the budgets of the governments, but the private also, meaning the private sector investing in biodiversity action, but also the multilateral developing banks, but also the international financing institutions, and also the philanthropic. That is, has a history of being understood as how private sector invest in biodiversity. This is not the case anymore. Philanthropic is aid. Private investment is how you change the way you produce and consume resources in order to be helpful to stop biodiversity loss. Having said that, then I open this idea of all sources with some specificities. Developed countries have agreed since the adoption of the CBD in 1992 that they will be providing the money for developing countries, okay? This one, first source, fulfillment of developed countries' parties' obligations. They have an obligation, and it is in Article 20 of the CBD. Another ways are additional international resources. How? For example, identifying and eliminating, phase out, or reform financial resources flows that are causing harm to biodiversity. Because money, there's money. But for example, if parties or governments are investing in harmful subsidies that are harmful for biodiversity, this amount of money should be either phased out, should be eliminated, or reformed towards ensuring that this money goes to biodiversity action. And the other way I was talking about is mainstreaming. Mainstreaming it's a word that was devised in COP16 that speaks about how the private sector is involved. It's not that they are going to provide money per se, but they are changing their production and consumption patterns so they are not harmful to biodiversity. How greenwashing is avoided? It's avoided because we have the definitions of how mainstreaming should be done, where in the decisions of the COPs. So these COPs are deciding not only the what, but also the how. And this is very important for us to know. Because one of the things that we are going to follow up is how parties are delivering on their agreements. And there is a space where the organized women organizations, sorry for the two words the same, but the Women Caucus is always signaling this. You agreed on that, you have to deliver on the agreement. And this is one of the work that the Women Caucus does within the COP, within the negotiations, okay? Then there's another thing that is very important. Money is there, we have many funds, environmental funds, the new Global Biodiversity Framework Fund, and other funds that are not only for biodiversity, but for climate change and for desertification or whatever. These funds already exist. These funds already have money already, especially those related with climate action. And this money is allocated to countries, to governments, not to the actors on the ground. We, the women that act on the ground, have to have direct access to this money. Otherwise, the money goes through intermediaries, And it has been proven that the intermediary, this process of changing hands before they arrive to the ground, to the actual community that does the work to conserve and protect and sustainably use biodiversity, rarely receives any money. The numbers have been done for climate change, and it's less than 1% of whatever money is allocated. For biodiversity, we don't even know because there's no money in there. We see it move, but how much money is actually arriving for example, a woman or a women organization in a community that wants to implement some actions to protect the bees by planting a native species or whatever, they don't see the money. So these intermediaries, we are looking for these intermediaries not to be needed. That is what we call direct taxes. We are pushing for direct taxes. And fortunately, several parties—
Sorry, Eda, we need to move on.
Okay,
Yes.
well, okay, so this is very important. Direct taxes for indigenous peoples, for local communities, for women, and for youth. This is one that we can push all together, okay? Then we have the human rights approach that is mandated by the Global Biodiversity Framework, and the non-market-based approaches that include, for example, support for community action. I am sorry I talk too much all the time, but I am here for any questions you need to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Eda, and don't worry, we're going to have some other sessions like this, and to go deep into the different items. This is just a teaser for everyone to join the Caucus and engage in these conversations and participate. And actually, we just got this question from in the chat, and these are the different space that, and we're gonna go into detail with my following colleagues about the. Okay, so this is what COP is in simple words. These are the topics that are going to be negotiated during COP, but then how we can participate as women and as a civil society or from our communities. There are many other ways, like many other spaces to participate, but we want to share today the spaces that the Women's Caucus is organizing, co-organizing, or is engaged with. We are also highlighting and look at this as a process, because we have different opportunities and spaces before COP, during COP, and after COP. And this is an invitation for everyone to be interested in being part of these activities to join us. Just gonna go a bit through this overall collaborative calendar, and then my colleagues are going to explain a bit more in detail about how to engage in the different activities. Before the COP, we are expecting to organize and co-host different online trainings or online processes. Also, for those that are members of the Caucus, we usually come together in what we call the policy task forces, which are smaller groups that focus particularly in one item of the agenda and discuss and develop our collective policy position. And then is from those conversations is where we get these priorities that have been shared from my colleagues previously. Also, there are going to be a series of events online and in person previous to COP, and also it's the time that the Caucus is working with all like typing really hard, preparing some publications on how to better disseminate these policy priorities. During COP, we are going to have our preparatory meeting a bit more to be shared in the next slide. And also, it's the time when the caucus is fully engaged in the policy process, participating directly in the negotiation, lobbying, talking directly to the delegates, but also, and in the next 2 slides, we're going to listen a bit more about the events in the blue zone. We're not going to cover the green zone, as this is a space that is organized by the Colombian government, and also because the opportunities to apply for an event in the green zone is already closed, and the calendar hasn't been published yet, so we are in an in-between for the green zone, so we cannot share more updates on that regard. And the other opportunity to participate is all around communications and campaigns that we are also going to hear a bit more in detail from our colleague Fatima. And after COP, we also, we tend to do this as a good practice, is that we come together with a public webinar to share the reflections and the outcomes that we see, positive and negative, that we can see from a women's and gender lens, and also to put those reflections together in a publication to be disseminated. And so there is also an evaluation of what happened or what was achieved or not during COP16. But to listen a bit more in detail about how whoever is interested in joining us in the policy stream, let us welcome my colleague Georgina, who is gonna walk us through a bit more on the policy and negotiations that happened during at the Blue Zone. Please, Georgina, if you are here, just unmute yourself and yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Amelia.
Yeah, we can see you.
Yes, thank you. Hope you can hear me. Can you? Yes.
Yes,
good.
yes, all good.
Thank you, and hello to everyone. I am Georgina speaking. I'm from Bolivia. And as Amelia already mentioned, there are different means for participating in the COP, the Conference of the Parties of the Convention on Biological Diversity, and particularly in this COP16. And participating in the COP, one of the issues or one of the activities that we can follow is policy and negotiations. As we know, as women, we are holders of civil and political rights, and that's recognized in different legally binding instruments. And participating in this fora is particularly relevant, and is the exercise and the realization of the civil and some of the civil and political rights that we have as women individually and also as a collective. And all the negotiations have their own pace, their own speed. Sometimes it can be frustrating, but I would like just to highlight the relevance of we as women participating in these processes, not only for what we achieve, which is very important, but also what it would happen if we wouldn't be there. And the inclusion of a target 23 in the global biodiversity framework that is very much gender oriented and calls for a gender responsive approach, it wouldn't happen if the Women Caucus wouldn't be there, as well as a comprehensive gender action plan. So it's very important to be there, and there are different channels that we can contribute to these policy making and negotiations. One of those, as Amelia mentioned, is the policy task forces, where the different groups self-organized and also with lots of commitment get together to discuss the details of the negotiations and the text happening in a specific issue. As shown before, the agenda of every COP is very intense. And this COP16 is going to be even perhaps more intense because the period of time is shortened than the previous COP. So I am very sure that we will be different task forces working in parallel, seeing in depth the different issues that concern directly to women as Target 23 and as the Gender Action Plan, but also other areas that are relevant for women in general. And we are talking about, for instance, Target 10 that relates to agriculture, or the decision on biodiversity and climate change that affect the women in particular ways. So this is what the policy task forces do, and also share with others the advances of the different discussions. That is translated in policy publications that do not only provide the arguments, the rationale, why is this important and how it should have a gender approach and a gender responsive approach, but also specific suggestions on texts. And here, this is very important. If we want to influence in policies, we need to not only talk about this, the overall aspects of the rationale behind, but also we need to be very proactive and specific in suggesting text. And the text are the reflection of in-depth analysis, many times different opposite interests, different interests at stake, so etc. So the text really are the reflection of processes, and that's why it's very important to be very attentive to those the text, the work that is done in the text. For that, we carry out preparatory meetings in the COP16. Those will be held from the 19th to the 20th of October in order to familiarize the newcomers on how it's going to be the process, also to update ourselves and to exchange the knowledge that we have, how we are going to organize in the different activities that we are going to follow up, but also make a priority of the topics that we are also going to work and try to advocate and have incidents. And in these preparatory meetings, well, after that, there is another type of meetings in which we meet sometimes with either people from the secretariat or the chairs of the different groups in order to have discussions with them so they can hear directly from us our concerns, our demands, sometimes our frustrations, and also sometimes the things that we feel are going well. And this is also a way to make us visible and to make clear that we have a voice as right holders. And finally, internal daily meetings take place. This time will be from the very beginning of the COP16, the 21st of October, till the very end, 1st of November, in which we update ourselves from the different task forces, the different activities carried out, what had happened, what we should keep doing, to whom we should support. We also delegate responsibilities, different kinds of responsibilities, but most importantly, we get together and we remind ourselves that we are on this together, and that together we are stronger. And those daily meetings is not only for these practical, very important updates, but also to see each other, to cheer each other, and continue in the rest of the COP and beyond. So that's what we do in brief in relation to policy and negotiations.
Thank you so much, Georgina. And as people can see, it sounds like a lot of work. To be honest, is a lot of work, but we are also plenty and well organized. We can cover as much as possible. The policy task forces are going to start working at the end of this month and start gearing up. So whoever is interested, if you are part of the caucus, you have already had access to the task forces a spreadsheet where you can sign up to them. If you are not part of the caucus, but you want to be, my colleagues have shared in the chat many times already the subscription link. Please go through them, join us, and then we will send the invitations to these policy task forces, because that is the mechanism where we can start identifying our priorities, our demands, and our asks towards the negotiations. As possible, the preparatory and the internal daily meetings are hybrid, meaning that we set up a Zoom, and for those that are not in place for the negotiations, to be able to join and still follow the conversations through the reflections of those in place, but also to note that has been a practice so far that the CBD broadcast the plenary sessions, so you can also follow some of them, and if you are interested in a particular item, you can also follow from afar if that is the case. And now let us also hear a bit, because I think we are going to run a bit behind the agenda, so we have a bit of a space for the Q&A too. If we can hear now from Sharon, and if people are not so much interested in the policy and the lobby negotiation and recommendations, but still want to support and engage, we have also other stream that might be of interest for you all. So let us welcome Sharon and hear a bit about the events in the Blue Zone.
Thank you so much, Amelia. I hope you can all hear me. Yes, my name is Sharon. As Georgina has said, the negotiations and policy processes will still be going on, but in as much as that is happening, we shall also be having a zone in the Blue Zone where we will be holding side events, something similar to what was happening during COP15 at the Quebec, place Quebec. So we'll have a women's sort of hub, and we are now calling for collaborations with women organizations. Amelia has said we are going to develop the policy agendas in which we are going to really be focusing on during the COP16. And so the Secretariat opened a call for registration for the official registration of side events. And so we are going to be in liaison with the members, you, to at least collaborate in some of the side events that will be hosted during the COP16. So it is important to note that some area of the Blue Zone is going to be restricted to only accredited events, some of the delegates attending the COP, and generally it's not open to the public. So for accessibility of the Blue Zone, as provided under the CBD's website, is restricted. And so it is a call for us to just come together, see how we can co-organize, and for accreditation before the lapse that is open until the 31st of July. So we'll be reaching out to members who have the same agenda items that you'll be frontiering during the COP, see how we can co-organize events and just come up with also advocacy strategies to be held at the Blue Zone. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sharon. And just to make to stress this bit about, if you want to engage in the side events or these high-level events, please fill in this particular form that we are circulating in case you want to be a resource person, meaning if you want to provide advice or suggestions in terms of the policy side of the events, or if you are going to be at COP and you want to be a speaker for them. and in the other side, if you are going to be at COP, we are also always looking support in terms of the logistics, the delivery. There's other way that that people can help attending and or promoting the events, because also one good thing that COVID brought to this process is the hybrid part of it, right? So now most of the side events and most of the activities are broadcasted. So if you are not going to be in Colombia for COP, but still want to follow the events, you can also do so most of the times. That is not secure or guaranteed, but as possible, the events are broadcasted. And just one piece of advice here, if I may, is that most of these events are interpreted or have interpretation, sorry. But it's now the practice with the CBD community that we use remote interpretation, meaning that our interpreters are not in the place, and that the interpretation is provided through Zoom. So even if you are in Colombia, please always bring with you every day a pair or headsets, because now is that the way the interpretation is being provided even for our events. And now, please, Fatima, if we can hear from you on the other option of how people can get engaged, or how could women participate through the comms stream. I don't know if it's just me or I cannot hear Fatima.
Okay, now I was stuck because of the
yes,
host. Yes,
we now can see you.
Yes, thank you so much, Amelia, for this. And I'm very thrilled to be here and to talk about the comms strategy toward the COP16. So the communication for us is a key element, and very important to highlight the work of the CBD Women's Caucus in the COP or during the COP. For this, we are working on 3 phases, which is the pre-COP, during the COP, and after COP or post-COP. So basically, we are going to have a strategic way to get more visibility and also to reach as much as possible the people, and also to share our advocacy and policy, and also to share with the audience and what are the key points that the CBD Women's Caucus is advocating during the COP. So basically, we are, as a team, we are working on several points that include the social media, the website, the newsletter, the campaign, and the press conference, press release, and actions and activations. To be starting, we have already launched the campaign, which is a gender and biodiversity champion, and we really try to get more visibility during the Substa 26 and SPI 4 during May in Nairobi. So beside this, we are trying to make a social media toolkit that will be a useful toolkit that includes all the information needed. For example, the captions and the messages we are going to share. And we need to address to the people, and also under within the atmosphere of the COP. The toolkits also include some materials that will help you to reach all the messages, and also will be in collaboration with the policy team who which are going to share with us the necessary materials and the messages that we need to share it through either through our social media or through the website or the newsletter. And also the press conference. So far, we don't have any updates from the CBD Secretariat, but we are working alongside with them, with the comms team of the CBD Secretariat, to have this press conference where we are going to share our outcomes, and also to share the key topics from the policy team, who is basically the policy team representative will be with us in this press conference, and we will be able to deliver all the priorities and outcomes and the points that we need to highlight or to spotlight during the COP. Regarding the press release, and also it is very important points, and we are going to work together on the press release, since it will be like the mirror of our work, and also it will deliver the most prominent decisions. Regarding how you can join this COMS task force, everyone can join this. If you are a member, we have already dropped in the chat box that's how to join the CBD Women's Caucus, and you can afterwards join the COMS task force, where you are going to develop many skills, and also you will be working every week or on the many important points regarding the communication strategy, and also to prepare the materials for the COP. Normally, as Amelia said, and our colleagues earlier, that we will starting the preparation earlier, as this webinar is part of the pre-COP preparation, and
I think Fatima is having a bit of issues. I don't know if anyone else computer, but after what happened at the beginning, my laptop is also almost dead. So I'm just I'm hoping that the call doesn't close. So if Fatima rejoins, she will close her message, but in the meantime, perhaps Georgina, if we can move on now to the Q&A. There have been already some questions in the chat. As possible, let us try to address them all. And let me stop sharing the screen. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Amelia, and thank you everyone for sharing their questions. We have two types of questions on the chat. Some of them refer to the actual dynamics of the caucus, and others refer to the CBD and the topics to be discussed. So I will iterate between these two, and I will start with the ones related to the caucus. One person asked, what are the benefits of being at the CBD caucus, and how it would be possible to support the caucus and the requirement to have a legal inscription, the first question is, what are the benefits to be the part of the caucus? That's the question. And the second question, I am going to read it in Spanish because I think it's going to be easier. And it says, ¿cómo puede apoyar el caucus para superar el requisito que tienen algunas organizaciones de mujeres de tener personería jurídica? Y a través de ello, ¿no? La pregunta va encaminada a saber más que todo cómo puede ser el registro para participar en la COP y en la zona sur. So I'm going to leave it there so we can have few questions, few answers, and we'll go that way. Is that okay, Amelia?
Yes, and also to let my colleagues that have a lot of experience in the CBD, if they can also jump in and try to answer them, meaning Christina, Shruti, and everyone here.
Yes, and let's start with the first question. What is the benefits of being of caucus? I don't know. Well, Christine, I think she's getting ready, or Amelia, please jump in to provide answers to these eager questions.
Amelia, I can only say that we wouldn't have target 23 on gender equality. We wouldn't have a second GPA unless because of the incredible enthusiasm of women caucus members and women present, physically present, sometimes through also virtual participation, and pushing and promoting the agenda with their parties. Parties ultimately are the champions and made this possible, but unless there was such a great movement and solidarity of action of women, it wouldn't have been possible. So to me, it's quite obvious what the benefits are. Together is possible, alone, way more difficult.
I will just add to that also in terms of personal development and professional development in terms of by coming all us together and sharing our knowledge and you mentioned it, Georgina, and sometimes sharing our frustrations or holding our hands. It's also one of the benefits. Not like this is a space where many of us we have found a refuge, where many of us have found a way of acting at the local level, voicing our demands at the international level. You know, like there are different benefits depending on what are you looking for, and also what do you give to the collective. You know, like we started by saying that this is a self-independent organized space, meaning that as much as we give to the space will also give to us. But I know perhaps Shruti can also share a bit about her experience and a couple of benefits she have seen from this, from being part of the caucus.
Thanks, Amelia. I think probably one of the newest members have been engaging. It started, my journey with the Women Caucus started prior to COP15, when we were pushing for the gender target that we have now today as target 23, and of course the gender plan of action, and having like a wide array of experts who are part of this Women Caucus, who are ready to share their knowledge and build our capacities. It was a huge learning. And it also gives us context, especially those who are working at national level, to kind of provide ground realities and see and have checks on what is happening at the global policy level, and whether it reflects whatever is happening at national level implementation, and then inform the various, of course, there are countries, and then also the other key stakeholders, groups. So it has been a very, very inspiring journey for me personally, but also to be able to, like as Christina said, the solidarities of women is a very, very positive, empowering thing, and it's great to be part of the Women Caucus, because the learnings, the way we've been engaging, this is also a very transparent space, and thanks to the coordinator and everyone engaged, the fact that anyone and everyone can be part of it without going through multiple loopholes, which makes it an open and transparent space for anyone to be able to engage effectively and freely. So, thanks to all. It's a continuous learning journey for me, and I hope to continue learning more from all of you.
Yes. And if I may, Georgina, just following Suti's idea and trying to address the question of the registration, like it's not within the Caucus capacity to support on legal registration, but and it's up to the secretariat of the CBD to accept and accredit organizations. But what we could do is that people that register as members of the Caucus could be registered to the COP through an accredited organization based on this solidarity that Shruti was mentioning. Like within the Caucus, we have organizations that are already accredited. And if you want to attend COP, but you cannot because you are not part of an accredited organization or because you are not part of an organization, this registration could be done. But we cannot waive the official registration for your organization. That is a process that the Secretariat leads, and we do not have the capacity to support your organization to become a legal registered one. That is also one question that has been floating around in the chat.
Yes, thank you, Amelia. And I would like to go to the other questions, two more in relation to the caucus. One says, and is asking, what are the side events that will be organized by the caucus and when they will be? Perhaps this is also related to the possibility of connecting online. And the second question is how to join the policy coordination team. So there are two questions. Who would like to reply?
I can address the policy coordination one, and perhaps Sharon, she explains a bit about the Blue Zone side events. There is no particular policy team coordination. What we have are these policy task forces that Georgina mentioned. So people join the different thematic groups, and within their thematic groups, they work. And the colleagues of those task forces come together to share the different priorities. But what we tend to do within the caucus is to have regular calls, policy calls, where everyone is invited. So the policy task forces leads share the priorities of their conversations and so on. So again, for those that are already part of the caucus, please, if you have not join or register to any of the task forces, come to the spreadsheet and do so. Or if you are not part of the caucus yet, join the caucus, then we will share this registration spreadsheet for the policy task forces. And once you're registered there, you will be invited by the policy colleagues to these conversations.
Thank you, Amelia. Please, let's hear from Sharon on the side events.
Perhaps to jump in, we are still in the process of consolidating the side events. We hope that the caucus will organize 3 in collaboration with the members. So the call is open. Amelia has shared the link in which you can register if you want to be a co-organizer or just organize an event in the Blue Zone. So we will drop a link here, and then I will reach out to the members who have registered in the link so that we can coordinate and see how we can come up with the proposals.
Thank you. And something also that I could add is that we usually communicate the side events on the social networks. So please follow up on the social networks, because there we have also lots of information. And many times, thanks to the communication team, we are able to broadcast on real time. So that's, and to publish things that are happening on the site at that moment. So please follow us on the social networks. And we have, let's transition now to another sort of questions in this interface between what the Caucus does and what the implementation is. And there is another question that says, how the Caucus can influence on governments for them to really, truly implement their biodiversity and biodiversity gender agendas. And another related question is also how we can follow up and push and advocate for those commitments on biodiversity and gender to be fulfilled by the parties of the CBD.
Perhaps I will invite you, Georgina, to answer them because you have like a both sides perspective of this. And just noting that we are in the limit of the hour that the event was planned. So perhaps after you answering those questions, we let Fatima address an element she wants to mention, and then we will need to go to the next steps and close, please.
Thank you. Then I will be brief. I do believe, first of all, we have to be organized, because together we have a more collective constituency that can also put pressure in the governments. This is one thing. This is another thing is we have to do our part. I want to start with that. Governments have many responsibilities, but we have also to do our part in being organized, in being aware and know the basic pieces of legislation and also international commitments that our countries are ascribed to, in order to have the proper normative and administrative and technical arguments to demand fulfillment of the commitments at international level. Also, our part is to share knowledge, to strengthen our capacities collectively. Not everyone can be everywhere, but we can communicate thanks to these tools. And there is a lot of eager in the group. And I would say this is a very beautiful characteristic that we women have, which is sharing, caring, and supporting each other. And this, I would say, this is the very first thing we have to do. And with that, we can be visible with our governments, organize and implement advocacy processes, and be solid in our arguments. This is something, there are more to do, but I would like just to leave it there because it's very concrete and something that we are trying to also support from the Caucus. Well, with that, the next one is, well, there are many questions and very interesting questions that perhaps we can take them over, because there is also, for instance, a very important question that we as a Caucus, we can reflect later on is how, for instance, girls can actually have a voice in this process. And this is very important because children have the right to be heard and their voices to be taken into account in policy making. Something that, thanks for that question, that also gives us insights to keep evolving the work that we do. And there are many others that we can later on share them internally and also see how we can provide the response, but more than response in written or spoken, response in actions that is within what we can do as a Caucus. So with that, thank you very much for the questions shared. Sorry for the time, always is very short, but everyone also has many things to do. So Amelia, I'm back to you.
Thank you so much. Let us hear from Fatima. And yeah.
Thank you so much. And I'm so sorry for the technical problem. I would love just to ask you to to show us your beautiful smiles and faces. Can you please turn on your cameras that we can? Thank you so much. And for today webinar, we reached 100 participants. Thank you so much for joining. Another one, just keep the camera. Another one. There are so many slides. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for turning your camera on. And I will give the floor to Amelie to close this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fatima, and to everyone. This is only the first conversation towards COP, so there are going to be more of these webinars because information keeps flowing and the plans change or their plans get consolidated. So it is needed that we keep the conversation open, and there are plenty of questions that we couldn't address. And totally agree with Georgina that more than addressing them in the written or with words, it's better to address them with actions, depending on what they are. Yeah, we're going to send the recording and the slides to everyone that was registered because we couldn't admit everyone to the conversation, or in case you also want to go through the information shared. Please follow the social media because that is the space where we share the new invitations. And in case you don't want to be part of the caucus, but still want to follow the events. Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you so much to our amazing interpreters and our amazing panelists of today. See you really soon in the other calls for the working. Thank you so much, everyone.
Follow us on social media.
Yes.